Mr. Alfred Fleischman, Chairman of the Board of Fleischman Hilliard Incorporated. Mr. Ray Krings, Advertising Manager, Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch Incorporated. Ray, that I think is just great. Mr. Ed Vogel, Vice President, Director of Marketing, Anheuser-Busch Incorporated. Mr. Harry Chesley, never played gin with him, Jr., Chairman of the Board, Darcy Advertising. And our guest, Mr. August Bush, Jr., President, Chairman of the Board of Anheuser-Busch Incorporated. On my left, you met Mr. Gene Wilkie, President of the Ad Club. Mr. Charles Claggett, Chairman of the Executive Committee, Gardner Advertising. Mr. Walter Reisinger, member of the Board of Directors, Anheuser-Busch, and Corporate Media Coordinator. Mr. James Orthwine, member of the Anheuser-Busch Board of Directors and Vice President of Darcy. My good friend and neighbor, Mr. Ed Langen, Vice President, Account Supervisor, Gardner Advertising. Mr. William Rosenthal, Vice President, Account Executive, Budweiser, Darcy Advertising. And just 1 minute. Bill was our co-chairman today, and I must say this is the largest luncheon attendance we've had in the history of the Ad Club, and I mean the recent history, and I think it's to Bill's great work that we have this crowd here today. Bill, thank you very much. And he told me to say that so Jack Machika would approve his expense account. And now, on behalf of the Ad Club of the Greater St. Louis, we would like to present Mr. August A. Bush, Jr. in appreciation of his splendid service to the community and to the Advertising Club of St. Louis, a membership in the exclusive order of the Gavel. Mr. Bush, we hope you'll say a few words to us, please, sir.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I'm deeply honored to be with you today. I think this advertising club of yours and ours has done a great service for St. Louis, for the whole nation, as a matter of fact. No one loves to be with friends like I like to be with. And I feel that I'm with friends today, and I just want to thank you all again from the bottom of my heart, because I know that you came out for me, not for the chairman down here. And now, since I'm a bum speaker, I have the great privilege of introducing a guy that's been working with us for 30 years at Anheuser-Busch. Darn near ball that up, too, didn't it? I know that he stands well with the Ad Club. I can tell you this, that he's been a great asset to Anheuser-Busch, one of the finest guys that I know of, and I give you with a great deal of pleasure, Ray Krings.
Well, it occurs to me that the very first comment is in order. That is in order is that he finally caught up with me. Somehow or other, ladies and gentlemen, and let me first now follow the usual rule of protocol by acknowledging the boss, Mr. Bush, Chairman Don, President Gene, and Chairman Billy over there on the end. I look upon this meeting with you all today as sort of kind of a climax of Old Home Week. You see, and I guess almost everybody knows this, I'm on the point of running out of years, and somehow or other, it occurs to me that perhaps that's one of the reasons that your committee asked me to sort of play second man to the boss today. And this is obviously for me always a real pleasure. And since it is sort of Old Home Week among us all, I would like to tell you something you have heard on many an occasion, and that is that there are in the lives of men some very little things that very often shape their destiny. And I doubt that there is a man in this room who will understand that one of those little things is in my life and has, in a sense, although it sounds sort of formidable to say it, sort of shaped my destiny. I go back now to a similar meeting which occurred, if I could properly remember the year, about 1951. And the reason that I can come somewhat close to this is that in those days we sponsored the Ken Murray Show. Gene, if I may say, on CBS TV. Because the Ken Murray Show was big at that time, I think at least that was the reason, the Ad Club asked me to appear as a speaker at one of the meetings and to give a report of our experience with Ken Murray and the Ken Murray Show. Well, all this was duly done, the meeting came to an end, and I'm now down in the lobby. Actually, it was the Statler in those days. And a guy comes up to me and he says, "Ray, I want you to know I'm Joe Brown." His name wasn't Joe Brown. I forget his name. He was at that time, I know who he was. He was the advertising manager of the Frisco. So I said, "Gee, it's wonderful to know you." And he made some perfunctory remark about good program and this kind of thing. And then all of a sudden he said very quickly, and I guess I should have suspected something from the way he said it, he said, "By the way, do you know that guy Jim Brown down there with you?" Now the name wasn't Jim Brown, but it was one of our guys who had just previously retired. And I said, "Yeah," and I was about to follow this with some laudatory kind of comment. But all of a sudden, this guy chimes in and he says, "Man, he was an egotistical..." Now, ladies and gentlemen, the he didn't say, but the words or word that he used, and I'm not going to describe precisely to you what he said, indicated a kind of, shall we say, a deficiency in his lineage. Now, there are certain ways that gets done in everyday English. You know, a sort of a chap of questionable origin. And of course, you don't really know what I'm after. You can say this in a word, or you can say it in, so to speak, a quick assemblage of words. Some irregularity in his coming to be, shall we say, if you all know what I mean. Now, it wasn't 3 words. It was less than 3 words. And so I pondered what he said. As a matter of fact, if there was anything in that brief meeting in the lobby of the Statler some 17 or 18 years ago, it was that it cemented in my mind the fact that if I would come to the point when I was to retire years hence, I made up my mind right there and then that the guy who described me to some other Joe at Anheuser-Busch would not describe me as an egotistical And so, very frankly, if any of you through the course of the years, and I owe so many of you so much, but if any of you have rubbed shoulders with me, I would like to have you know that if I have appeared perhaps as the right kind of guy to you, this isn't just due to me. It's due to that little thing that occurred in the lobby of the Statler some 18 years ago when a guy described a man who had been a confrere of mine at the company. And I would simply like to say that while this man who was described might have been sort of a bastion of excellence, Mr. Bush, he sure failed to like all get out when it came to the test of making friends as our business. Now, what would you like to hear from me today? Honestly, I don't really know. I did some thinking about it. And I think what I would like to start with is a quote from a guy who in turn quoted a guy at the groundbreaking ceremony recently held of our brewery down in Jacksonville. This quote is from Samuel Foss, and it was used by the Chamber of Commerce and the president of the Chamber of Commerce. He said, "Bring me men to match my mountains. Bring me men to match my plains, men with empires in their purpose and new eras in their brains." I think every man in this room can say amen to that, because those words reflect the American dream, don't they? Surely those words are as much a guide for us economically, and have been through the years, as the Torch of Liberty has been a guide for us spiritually. But there's something more to the purpose today in those words as I see it, because when I think of this thought, new eras in their brains and even the empires in their purpose, I think somehow or other we're getting very, very close, aren't we, to the meaning of advertising in our system. I think we are. And I would like to explore with you now perhaps a little bit more about advertising itself. Shall we try to define it? Well, I'd like to try, but don't hold me to, the last word. This isn't a class. I'm not a professor. If anything, I've been laboring in this area over a long period of years, so let's see whether we can describe what advertising is and what it's supposed to do. I would say that advertising is communication from one mind to another mind or to a multiplicity of minds. This communication seeks through cogency of argument or warmth of presentation to gain attention for a product, and then through effectiveness of demonstration to move from persuasion into the area of conviction, so that the individual who is aware of this advertising will be moved to the trial of the product. Now, is that approximately fair? Is this about what advertising is? I think so. But I'd like to have you bear one thing in mind with me very quickly. I just said to the trial of the product. Now, bear in mind, all of a sudden we're dealing with something other than commercials and message and ads. We're dealing now with something quite concrete, aren't we? We're dealing with a product. And as a matter of fact, I think we can say that unless the product vindicates the advertising, the answer is not a steady customer, which is the objective of the advertising in the first place, but it's a rejection of the product, isn't it? Now, why do I labor this point? I labor it because in this group I think it needs to be labored. I am guilty of what I am about to say to you. I'm of the opinion that much, much too often, those of us who are in any phase of advertising take the position that advertising is a be-all, a cure-all, and end-all, when in reality, good friends, it really isn't anything more than one of the facets of marketing. And I think we hurt advertising when we claim too much for it. What are the other facets? Again, without trying to play professor, let's hit them very quickly. There is merchandising, is there not? There is sales promotion, is there not? There is manpower, is there not? And certainly these are all facets of advertising. And yet at the very same time, so often we go blithely along and we accept plaudits when things are good. And advertising is everything. Advertising does everything. In reality, it doesn't, because, as I said a moment ago, that if the product does not vindicate the claims, you know the answer. And so let's all of us, for the benefit of the art and the business we're in, let's double check ourselves. Let's pull back from this notion that unless advertising flourishes, unless advertising does the job does not get done. Tain't so, necessarily. So all I would like to say to you, let's bear in mind that we are a part of an overall process. And this process is the one on which we, if we are going to build the dreams of America higher and stronger, it's the process of total marketing, which should be the shrine at which we all pay homage. Okay. If that has helped us maybe to clarify a little bit in terms of what it is we're dealing with, I'd like to now go into perhaps a point or two that I think if I were out there and you were up here, I'd like to have you say to me. Okay. Now, on the basis of this job of advertising, as I've just tried to describe it, where does the agency fit in all this? Now, are we getting a little closer? Is everything getting now to be a little more binding? Am I all set to really give this thing a whirl? Am I going to use a lot of nice words and cover up everything I'm not? Today, no punches get pulled as far as I'm concerned. Today, I want to lay it on the line with every last one of you. And I would say that on the basis of this description of advertising as I've given it to you, one thing stands very important. Just as advertising demands a total commitment on the part of the people in a company who are in charge of the advertising for that company, so advertising equally must have a total commitment from the agency. Oh, nice schoolbook stuff. But you'd be amazed. I don't think everybody believes this. I believe it, and that's why I'm telling it to you. And I think, frankly, if I could sell you in this room today on believing this, we would have made some real progress. Now, why do I say that not everybody believes it? Well, some years ago, I was part of a panel at an ANA, Association National Advertising meeting in Chicago. Ben Wells was the chairman. And this had to do with this very same subject, the relationship of the advertiser and the agency. And when it came my turn to be heard, I took this tack, this notion of total commitment, that anything else did not measure up. Anything else would not give the advertiser what the advertiser deserved and what he was paying his money for. Well, it's pretty soon apparent from the angle of what occurs in the audience, I'm not very popular because I make some references to the fact that I don't care whether it's Saturday or Sunday or day or night or whenever in terms of this total commitment, and I'm beginning to get the raspberry. But I don't care what happened in Chicago, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever happened in Chicago didn't unsell me. I'm as convinced of this today as I was then. And I want you to know that as far as I'm concerned, ideas, and what else is the real guts of this business, don't necessarily dawn only from 8 to 5 or only Monday through Friday. They can hit any time. And if a guy running advertising for a company has to feel hesitant about calling guys in the agency at 12 o'clock at night or on Saturday or on Sunday, there's got to be something wrong. Why? Because in my book, there is no total commitment. Okay. I'm running a little wild, right? Well, from my point of view, and I realize you're subjected to it, it's this kind of day. And at this point, I think I'm somewhat reminded of the first reading at last Sunday's Mass. You know, it was that stalwart St. Paul. And he said something about sounding brass and tinkling cymbals. Fortunately, he didn't say anything about a braying ass, because if he had, there'd be absolutely no denying the connection between the words that you're hearing now and what the apostle said was going on. Let me simply say to you that we've now disposed of the agency, as I see it, and I've got a couple of other major areas I'd like to deal with. So now let's take a look at the guys who come calling, the advertising reps. Get ready, guys. Get ready. No holds barred, I said, and I mean it. Now, I'd like to quote to all the reps in this room that one line of the 4 lines that were used in Jacksonville, the new eras in their brains. Fellows, live with me on this. I hope maybe I can make an overall contribution to you. And if 18 years in the advertising business mean anything, then maybe I could be the guy who would have the guts to say what's about to happen. Ladies and gentlemen of the rep business, I became the advertising manager for Anheuser-Busch in 1950. Now that adds up to 18 years, doesn't it? And I want to say to you very simply that in those 18 years, not more than, well, that's fingers, I'll include the thumb, not more than 5 times did a guy come into my office and act as if he knew what my business was. Now, everybody who comes in, of course, knows why he's there. A space rep has space to sell. A time rep has time to sell. But fellows, look, if you come in to me or now to any advertiser, and that's the only merit of going into this at all, that it might help. If you come into an advertiser and, man, you got something real juicy, space in a publication, time on radio, time on television, but you talk as if the only thing you've got is this thing to sell him, and you don't act at all as if you know or really care much about what his needs might be, then where can you expect to be in his analysis of your call? Now, please, I know this is touchy. You can come right back and you can say to me, well, Ray, for Pete's sake, we can't know the whole business of everybody we call on, and I don't think that's absolutely necessary. But that you can know something about the man's business, and I would say to you, I am in my own mind so firmly convinced of what I'm saying to you, that if I were you, I wouldn't make a call at all until such time that I felt I had something to offer to the man that would recompense him for taking the time to see me. He's interested in you if you can bring him new eras, if you can bring him new ideas, if you can find how what it is you have to sell will benefit the product the company to which he has given his life. But unless you come into that category, guys, I would say take it very easy. Now, is this easy? Is this process easy? It is not. It's damn difficult. But the name of this game isn't easy. And the goal isn't easy. But it's here. And for those who are willing, shall we say, to labor and to slave, the recompense can be great in terms of personal satisfaction, in addition to anything, let us say, a little more on the lucrative side. All right, now we've hit the agency, haven't we? We've hit the rep, haven't we? And now we're really going to tear it apart. What about the creative function? And time is running out on us, so I'm going to have to make this a little more brief, perhaps, than I'd like to. I want to say to you guys out there, hold to your convictions. Now, your convictions are under trial, aren't they? Mine are. And I've been in this business a long time. I make no pretense that they're not. I didn't grow up in terms of a mechanistic approach to anything. I grew up in terms of a social human approach to things. Now, shall I apologize for this? I don't think so. I'm willing to lay the record of service that I've given to Anheuser-Busch on the line and let it be judged. But face it, we're dealing, aren't we, with what? A new breed. And if I said I was going to tear the roof off, I think maybe this is the most sensitive area. And I'm sorry we don't have a little more time to get into it. Because there are new forces abroad in the land, in this land of advertising. And look, you guys, you may not like it, and there are times I don't like it. But we can't run away from it. It's here. So what do we do about it? Well, I say in the first place, Don, let me interrupt. I've got 5 minutes. I probably need 10. And I want to say to you people that if any of you have to leave, go, will you please? I will understand. I may need 10 minutes, and there are only 5 left. But I say, in relation to what you should do about what I will call now the new era, let me say, first of all, be alive to it. Don't just sit and act as if it isn't there. It's there, and you might as well know it. In the next instance, learn everything you can about it, and it's tough learning, at least if you grew up as I did. In relation to your own convictions, make compromises within reason. But let me say, and the most important thing I think is, hold tight to your convictions. At least hold tight to your convictions, not in a spirit of chauvinism, that will cling despite everything, but rather in a spirit of refusing to be swept off your feet until the whole of the story is in. Now, I think any management would accept what I have just said as a reasonable approach on the part of its advertising department. And I think this kind of approach from an agency would also be considered quite reasonable. I recommend it to you. Now to rush a little bit. And while I have said things applying to particular areas of our business up to now, I want to give you one that applies to us all, and especially to the advertising department. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure now to come back to Mr. Bush. Because while he hasn't said one word about advertising up to now, he's right in the middle of what comes next. Because as he discussed this program with me, he asked me a very significant question, which I wouldn't miss the opportunity to bring here today. He said, Ray, how does St. Louis stack up as an advertising center? Now, guys, live with me and gals, will you? As an advertising center, I've given years, as I said, and it's sort of ad nauseum now, to this field. And I would like to feel that there has been some community phase involved in what I've done. And well, obviously, Mr. Bush had in mind, because his whole record is a community record, he wanted to know what is there about advertising that might be improved in relation to this community. How did I answer him? I said simply, well, boss, you know, this kind of thing. I said, as a center, well, really not too well. He said, do you mean there's room for improvement? I said, there's a lot of room for improvement. And then he said, well, look, since you're going to make the talk, I wish you'd say one thing to the guys for me. And that's what I'm saying to you now. He looked at that point, and I thought, at the Morning Globe, and there's a headline in here, which I'll simply read to you. He said, and it reads this way, Agency to Aid Industrial Growth launched here. He said, Ray, on the basis of all of the progress made in our community in the last 15 years, let me point out to you that it is made primarily on a committee basis. Now, sure, we've all heard that nonsense, you know, about a giraffe being a horse designed in a committee. We've heard all that. But live with this thought a little bit, explore it a little bit. He said, find the right guy, put him in charge of a section of an operation and make him responsible for it, and you can accomplish wonders. The more I thought about that, the more I was convinced. And therefore, the more I was convinced that this thought should be launched in this meeting of the Advertising Club, embracing as it does the whole of the advertising fraternity in our area. What is there that the advertising department might do from a community point of view to make St. Louis more of an advertising center tomorrow than it is today? I'm not going to answer the question. This is an open-end kind of thing, where all of us, perhaps working together, can begin to write some answers in over time if we'll simply have the guts to do it. Mr. Bush pointed out to me, he said, look at Civic Progress. He said, where would we have been today except for the committee action within City Progress, which took problem after problem in this community. And because there were dedicated guys to run this thing, they came up with answers that brought us from the doldrums in which we seem to be operating over so long a period of time until we have this thing going today, which makes St. Louis actually respected throughout the nation and acknowledged for the sense of leadership, community leadership that's going here. Well, okay. You know, I look back now quickly and I realize that how quickly the time has gone. And in a way, I've said it, and I wouldn't let anybody know before I started what it was I was going to say. Chesley kidded me about this before. I'm amazed in a way, you guys and gals, at my own brashness. It's something of a caution, isn't it, the way we've taken things apart here today and put them back together again. I hope we put them back. You know, just could be that you might go away from here thinking that I'm the man for all reasons. I think, however, that I would like to bring my end of this meeting to a close by simply thanking you once more for the great people you are, and thanking every guy and gal in this room publicly for the great help so many of you have been to me over the years. I'd like to thank you in the name of our boss, Mr. Bush. I'd like to thank you in the name of all the guys from Anheuser-Busch and gals who are here today. And I wouldn't miss thanking you in the name of Harry Chesley and his good guys at Darcy, and Warren Kratke and Charlie Claggett and the good guys at Gardner. You've all been a great help to us, and I'd like to simply say to each of you, and have you understand that I mean this from the heart, that if anything I've said here today contributes even an iota to your well-being, to your business life, to your personal life, that will be for me reward indeed. Thank you very much.
Ray, you will notice no one took advantage of your invitation to leave. Gentlemen, Mr. Bush, gentlemen of Anheuser-Busch, fine associated advertising agencies, and other associates, it is a special privilege for the Advertising Club of St. Louis to have you as our honored guest today. Mr. Bush, you're a leading citizen, and we certainly understand why. And one reason that we in the advertising fraternity look upon Anheuser-Busch with such warm feeling is the man that I would like to step back to the microphone, Ray Krings. This man has been a major guide to all of us in the advertising industry. His contributions are not only well known, but carry forward in all fields of advertising endeavor. So to you, Ray, you've been elected to membership in the Order of the Exclusive Order of Brass Hats.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, gentlemen of Anheuser-Busch. The meeting is adjourned.